They're all up here in the front row. So you cameras back there, make sure you get a picture of them. And his son Blake is here, as well as Dad Jeff Seward, and Dell Seward, Mom. And we have Lauren Mayo, the mother-in-law, and Dad and Dave Mayo, the father-in-law. And they're right there, okay. And then Bob Seward, uncle, and Marge Seward, grandmother. So welcome to all of you. At this point, I'm going to come down and administer the oath of office to you. And then Chief Hill has some comments that he wants to let the community know about your experience and background. So I will be down here as soon as I find the oath. Here we go. Your wife and son want to stand with you? They're more than welcome. So if you would raise your right hand and swear after me. I solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Ohio, and will obey the laws thereof, and that I will, in all respects, uphold and enforce the provisions of the Charter and ordinances of this city, and will faithfully discharge the duties of public safety officer upon which I'm about to enter. Congratulations.
I'd just like to say a few words about Kyle. You know, he's going to be an excellent addition to our department. And when you hear about his background here, you'll see why. Officer Kyle Seward began his public safety career with the Brookville Fire Department in 2005 as a part-time firefighter EMT. In 2007, Kyle accepted a full-time position with the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, working as a corrections officer in the jail division. It was during this time that Kyle made the decision to pursue a full-time law enforcement career, attended the police academy in 2009. Upon completion of the police academy, Kyle returned to Brookville in 2010, this time as a full-time police officer. Kyle remained with Brookville until accepting a position with the Riverside Police Department in 2012. Kyle remained with Riverside PD until being hired by Oakwood in November of 19. During his time at Riverside, Kyle served as an evidence technician, and for the last 3 years was assigned to the detective section, having significant involvement in several high-profile cases. For the past 10 years, Kyle has been certified and actively working in all 3 public safety disciplines, and his background and experience makes Kyle a natural fit for our organization. Although Kyle has only been here a few short weeks, Kyle's in the final stages of finishing his field training program and will be working on his own in the very near future. This is a testament to Kyle's level of public safety knowledge, skills, and abilities. Please join me in welcoming Kyle to the Oakwood Public Safety Department.
I believe there's a future politician in your family, Kyle. All right. The next status report we have is Councilmember Rob Stevens has a report about our Citizen Police Academy. Rob?
Thank you, Mayor Duncan. I want to talk about the Citizens Police Academy, and I just want to read a memo written letter from a longtime Oakwood resident, a member of our planning commission. I think it's well written and talks a lot about what we're very excited about in this new program that was instituted not long ago. titled Reflections of a Citizens Police Academy Graduate. When I applied to participate in Oakwood's 10-week Citizen Police Academy program, I assumed its purpose was primarily to raise citizen awareness and build support for the Public Safety Department. Even though I already appreciated how quickly our officers respond to emergencies, patrol our neighborhoods, and attend block parties, I felt obligated to commit, thinking that if citizens don't participate in community building programs the city offers, such programs won't survive. With that thought, I applied. It took just one class for me to realize that I had a lot of learning to do about the department's operations. Most importantly, I came to realize that our relatively small public safety department has an impact that reaches far beyond our community. And what did I learn about the department that motivates this article? I now comprehend the tremendous economic advantages of a consolidated safety department. Had Oakwood not started its combined Department of Police, Firefighters, and Emergency Services back in 1927, it is unlikely, due to the influence of labor unions, that we would enjoy the economic advantages our department ensures today. I understand how the department determines new hires. Candidates must have completed 12 months of employment as a full-time police officer, career firefighter, or paramedic. The average new hire has 6.5 years of service. Officer candidates submit to psychological testing, a medical exam, background investigation, and at least 2 oral interview boards. Rank and file officers serve on the interview boards because they have a vested interest in the skills and temperaments of new hires. I learned that members of the department rotate through specialized assignments: the Kettering Regional Special Weapons and Tactics Team, the Miami Valley Communication Council's Tactical Crime Suppression Unit, the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, and the TCSU Accident Investigation Team. Each of these assignments requires advanced specialized training that far exceeds the training most police officers receive. These skilled teams have had high impact minimizing crimes within our city limits these past few years. Because the assignments rotate and our officer retention is high, our street patrol officers stay prepared for the extraordinary. Given the training and the years of experience Oakwood officers have, one might wonder why an officer would want to spend a career in Oakwood. I concluded it is because Oakwood's 29 officers spend the vast majority of their time helping people rather than enforcing the law. Last year, officers responded to 5,751 citizen-initiated calls for service and 1,395 911 calls. They helped investigate 115 traffic crashes, answered 113 fire calls for service, and made 420 EMS runs. It must feel good to use one's expertise and ensure others' well-being. Another reason for officer satisfaction is because there is a culture of professionalism and respect within the department. The officers I observe truly embrace their department's motto, service before self, and its core values. I saw the respectful manner in which officers shared information about each other's training and years on the force. Their deep camaraderie was evident by how they pool their resources to make the Citizen Police Academy instructive and enjoyable. A third reason I suspect officers choose to work in Oakwood is that there are opportunities to advance their skills in firearm use, criminal investigations, crime analysis, particular response team protocols, technical equipment and training, and emergency management. Oakwood officers continuously train to maintain the high-level skills of investigators, analysts, and crisis first responders. Their skills and knowledge extend to law enforcement and intelligence from across 7 municipalities. Before my class, I grossly underestimated the range of training our public safety employees receive. I didn't appreciate how many Oakwood officers are considered an expert in their area and leverage that expertise to teach others in departments throughout the country. The hours I spent driving a fire truck, taking fingerprints, using firearms, handling fire equipment, simulating traffic stop scenarios, and applying for the, quote, use of force continuum were unique experiences for me. My real takeaway from the academy, however, is that I learned the officers in my community, although highly trained to protect me in a dangerous circumstance, are most often involved in doing the behind-the-scenes work that builds trust with residents and facilitates a sense of security. This relationship explains why Oakwood citizens feel comfortable calling the police when they see something they think should be investigated or want their homes watched when they are out of town. Next August, you will have the opportunity to apply for the 3rd Police Academy. I believe you will find it rewarding and excellent use of your time. Healy Jackson. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Healy, for writing that letter. It was very informative. Chief Hill would like to come back to the podium and talk a little bit more about the Citizen Police Academy.
Thank you, Your Honor. When I was promoted to chief in November of 2017, a Citizens Police Academy was very important. One of the, community projects that I wanted to implement. I just think it provides a unique opportunity for us to engage and interact with our citizens, to have conversation and dialogue, to hear about community needs and expectations, and we get to share a lot of what we do. We're very passionate about what we do, the community we serve, and we like to show off a little bit about what we do, because not everybody truly understands the idea of a public safety department. We're the sole department in the state of Ohio that operates the way we do. We always talk about we're one of 32 or 35 or 40 or whatever that number is in the United States, but we are the sole public safety department, fully consolidated public safety department in the state of Ohio, and that does make us unique. I appreciate Mr. Klopp's support on this when we had the initial conversation, but make no mistake, this program has been a success 2 years in a row, not because of me. Captain Brzezinski spearheads it, and pretty much every public safety officer that stands behind me has had some part in instruction in classes. I tell the participants this, I think we enjoy it more than they do. Everybody behind me who participates continually, we have the dialogue and the conversations about how interactive the class is, how engaging our citizens are to learning a little bit about what we do. We cover pretty much all facets of our department over a 10-week period. This is kind of a shameless plug here, but we meet 2 hours on Wednesday, and the next academy will be next fall. So if you're out there and you have a free Wednesday night from 6:30 to 8:30, look for the advertisement in the Oakwood Register. And I appreciate the support.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
And it's obviously, as Healy's letter indicated, it's a great opportunity, and we would encourage all of you, but we do limit it to about 12 to 13.
Correct. We like to have all participants get up out of their chairs as much as we can. So it's not just lecture-based. We try to be proactive and provide practical opportunities for what we can to expose them to for what we do. So we do try to limit it to 12, but if we had the applicants, we would extend it to probably 15 or more.
Okay.
But yeah.
Very good.
In the teens.
In the teens. Okay.
In the teens.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
This afternoon, I received a letter from Rabbi Mengel from the Chabad, and I need my glasses to read it, so if you will indulge me. It's to the Honorable William Duncan. I am writing to let you know that I am a proud resident of Oakwood, and that I am proud of the progress that Oakwood has made in welcoming minorities to its community. When I first came to Dayton, we decided to locate to the south suburbs, even though the majority of the Jewish community and most of its institutions were in the north. I was well aware of the history that Oakwood had regarding Jews buying homes or living in its neighborhood. Therefore, we didn't know what to expect, and when we decided to move here and to establish the Chabad of Greater Dayton, a Jewish institution in the center of Oakwood. As I got to know more and more of our neighbors, residents, and the city government and management, especially Norbert Klopsch, it became clear to me that Oakwood was a great place to be for our community and for us personally. Whether it was the zoning board's accommodation of Chabad's needs for parking, the cooperation of Captain Mike Jones of the police to work with us in facilitating safety at special events, or the helpfulness of the Oakwood schools, our life here has been wonderful. I remember the powerful emotions so many members of the Dayton community felt when Mayor Judy Cook joined us in her official capacity that night as we dedicated our new center and participated in our giant public menorah lighting ceremony. She acknowledged the intolerant past and embraced the new Oakwood that welcomed and celebrated the public beacon of Jewishness in its midst. People greet us regularly as we walk the sidewalks. My wife and I and our children made acquaintances easily, sitting and chatting in the city's parks. The feeling has been warm and welcoming for us from the start. I am not so foolish to think that this or any other community is perfect. Show me a utopia, I will move there. But I know for a fact that my experiences have been consistently positive. Political leaders have been responsive, administrators have been encouraging and cooperative. First responders have always been courteous and friendly. When we had smoke in our garage, for instance, the fire crew was helpful and stayed until everything had been set right and make sure that we don't need to worry anymore. We have never experienced prejudice here from anyone. Quite to the contrary, Oakwood is a place we are proud to call home. Again, Rabbi Mangel. And now, for the reason I think you're all here, and I will need to keep my glasses on. On September 30, 2019, the City of Oakwood received a 5-page report entitled, "Who Gets Stopped in Oakwood? The Racial Divide." The report was prepared by Advocates for Basic Legal Equality Incorporated, ABLE. The authors are Ellis Jacobs, Senior Attorney with ABLE, and Dr. Martha Hurley, PhD, University of Dayton Professor and Director of Criminal Justice Studies. The report is attached as Exhibit A. Exhibit B attached hereto is a statement read aloud and into the record by Mayor William Duncan at the October 7, 2019 Oakwood City Council meeting. As mentioned in the October 7, 2019 statement, the City of Oakwood takes all matters related to the delivery of public services very seriously. The city committed to completing a thorough review of the report and to prepare a written response. This document is that response. The City of Oakwood has a long history of placing strong emphasis on traffic enforcement. This has been the case for decades and will continue. It is a cornerstone of our Public Safety Department's policing philosophy and plays a key role in reducing crime, OVI, and other traffic offenses that often directly or indirectly contribute to unsafe situations and vehicle and/or pedestrian accidents. The result is a community where all citizens are comfortable in their homes and on city streets, and in particular, where parents are confident that their children are in a safe environment. Why is traffic enforcement a high priority in Oakwood? The entire city of Oakwood consists of approximately 2 square miles, with nearly all the land area devoted to residential living. Exhibit C attached hereto and behind me is a map of Oakwood that shows in yellow highlight the residential land and blue highlight the commercial. Oakwood is essentially one big residential neighborhood. State Route 48, Far Hills Avenue, bisects Oakwood. It is a 4-lane highway serving as a major and primary thoroughfare between downtown Dayton and the southern Montgomery County suburbs. In 2016, about 13,400 vehicles per day traveled through Oakwood along Far Hills Avenue. The count was about 15,300 per day in 2019. There are 4 public schools in Oakwood, 1 elementary on the west side of Far Hills, and an elementary, junior high, and high school on the east side. Oakwood is a walking community in every respect. Given the small geographic size of the community and short distances to each of the 4 schools, Oakwood does not operate a school busing system. Hundreds of Oakwood students in grades 1 through 12 cross Far Hills Avenue daily as they travel to and from school, play in and around our community, go home for lunch, and socialize with friends. The unique characteristics of our community demand regular and focused attention on traffic enforcement. The report. From a data analysis perspective, the ABLE report is seriously flawed in several ways. rendering it inconclusive at best or invalid at worst. The primary flaws. The report focuses on a comparison by race of traffic citations. It presents a breakdown of race by persons receiving traffic citations, yet does not provide a breakdown by race of persons driving through the community, as this information is unknown and unknowable. The report also does not present a breakdown by race of persons that are driving through the community with suspended driver's licenses, outdated vehicle registrations, active warrants, or in stolen vehicles. During our subsequent discussions with the authors of the report, they acknowledged this key lack of significant data. The report directly compares the city of Oakwood with the city of Kettering, yet the two communities are very different. Oakwood is about 2 square miles, almost entirely residential, and with one major thoroughfare bisecting it. Kettering is a mixed-use community of about 18 square miles with a roadway network much more expansive than Oakwood. Like for Oakwood, the report provides no data on the breakdown of race of persons driving on the various Kettering streets, nor does it address differences in Oakwood and Kettering traffic enforcement priorities. License plate check. An important tool used by the Oakwood Public Safety Department and by police departments throughout Ohio and nationwide is license plate checks, whether officer initiated or via automatic license plate readers. This tool is used to locate persons with active warrants for arrest and stolen vehicles. It also identifies unlicensed and suspended drivers. The ABLE report expresses concerns about the use of license plate checks as a policing tool, despite the fact that it has been upheld as a valid, lawful tool by federal courts, including our own Sixth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals. The case is United States versus Ellison. Oakwood finds this tool particularly useful to ensure a safe community. There could be no question that unlicensed, uninsured, or suspended drivers pose a danger to everyone, and there is value in detecting these offenses when they occur. From January 1, 2016 through October 28, 2019, the Oakwood Public Safety Department made 152 warrant arrests. These arrests originated from a variety of scenarios, including investigation of suspicious persons, dispatch calls for service, routine field interviews, other local agencies locating a subject on an Oakwood warrant, and traffic stops. Of the 152 arrests, 34 were a direct result of random license plate check. Nearly 1/4 of the persons with arrest warrants were found via random license plate check. It is also important to note that when running license plate checks, officers must obtain additional information before they have sufficient probable cause to make a traffic stop for any reason other than an outstanding warrant. When a plate check identifies a licensing issue, it only indicates that the vehicle's registered owner has an outstanding licensing issue. The officer must confirm that the person driving matches the description of the registered owner, and this must occur before initiating that traffic stop. Although license plate checks are an important and valuable policing tool, they are only one small part of the Oakwood traffic enforcement program. In 2016, the year that was analyzed by ABLE, the Oakwood Public Safety Department made 392 traffic stops through the use of random license plate checks, stops that resulted in the operator receiving a traffic citation or a suspended driver's license or driving without a license. Of those 392 stops, 143 involved black drivers. During that same year, the Oakwood Safety Department conducted 4,302 traffic stops. Of these traffic stops, 2,216, or 52%, resulted only in a warning to the driver. The legal, lawful, and standard practice of conducting license plate checks accounts for only about 9% of our total enforcement activity, and just 3% of our total enforcement activity involved license plate checks of black drivers. The two streets where license plate checks are most often conducted are Far Hills Avenue and Schroyer Road. The daily vehicle traffic on these two streets is about 29,000 cars per day, or 10.6 million vehicles annually. The Oakwood Municipal Court. Oakwood has its own municipal court and employs a city prosecutor. The prosecutor and court operate in compliance with all state laws, and the court is recognized as well-run and fair to all. There is no evidence to suggest that persons of any race or ethnicity are treated differently in the Oakwood Municipal Court. The Oakwood Municipal Court operates a driver's license intervention program to assist those who are cited for driving while unlicensed or under suspension. Through this program, many participants have been successful in resolving outstanding suspensions, forfeitures, and warrant blocks, earning substantial charge reductions and exiting the program with a valid driver's license and automobile insurance. Exception of Oakwood. Some people perceive Oakwood as unwelcoming to minorities. This is an image assigned decades ago, but it is not an accurate description of our community today. Oakwood has become more diverse over the past decade or two, and we believe that this positive trend will continue. Actions the city will take. The ABLE report recommended that Oakwood commission an independent study of its current traffic stop data and adopt policies and provide training to ensure that all people driving in Oakwood are treated fairly and without discrimination. In subsequent meetings with city staff, the ABLE authors also requested that the Oakwood Public Safety Department discontinue the use of random license plate check. The city will not commission an independent study because an independent study would not change the fact that the ABLE report cannot be interpreted meaningfully without additional data that is both unknown and unknowable. In the delivery of public service, the city continuously looks for opportunities to improve. Notwithstanding that the ABLE report is inconclusive at best or invalid at worst, the city will take the following actions. We will continue to regularly review and update as necessary our existing anti-bias policies to reflect law enforcement best practices. A copy of our existing policy, which has been in place since 2012, is attached hereto as Exhibit D. 2, we will continue our training of Oakwood public safety officers and command staff on matters related to cultural diversity, implicit and explicit bias, and related topics, consistent with recognized law enforcement best practices. Our current training, which has also been in place since 2012, is effective and equals or exceeds training provided by other local jurisdictions. We will evaluate post-training impact assessment programs to determine if they add value to our training and provide measurable and meaningful benefit. 3, we will continue our policies and procedures related to the conduct of lawful license plate checks. 4, we will continue to openly support the positive values of diversity in our community and encourage like support by all of our citizens. And 5, we will continue to support our public safety department and its outstanding professionals to ensure that they enforce our traffic laws and keep our community safe. This report will be on our website in the morning, and we will also send, if anybody from the media would like that this evening, we can get that to you at the end of our meeting. Before we go to the visitor section of our meeting, I would like to see if any other members of council have anything they would like to add.
I do.
Councilmember
Yes.
Stevens, I give the floor to you.
Thank you. As the Oakwood City Council Committee Chair for Safety and Traffic, I feel the responsibility to remark on this issue. I've lived in Oakwood my entire life, excluding the 4 years I lived in Cincinnati and Cleveland immediately following college. I know we all have opinions as to why this is such a special community, but there is one consistent factor that I'm sure everyone can not only agree on, but also value as number one for all of our citizens, and that's public safety. We are very fortunate that we live in a community that is only 2.2 square miles because it allows for our special cross-trained safety department. Due to our small size, we can maintain this department and receive the benefit. Our officers can be at any home or business in an extremely short amount of time. They can go into a home with a small kitchen fire and put it out immediately. They can react to a person having a health crisis and start medical response on the spot. And they can arrive at a home or business in need of immediately address any policing matter that is required. We are fortunate to not have much, quote, active crime in Oakwood, and that is due to our ability to police our streets and neighborhoods on a regular basis. We are able to devote the time and resources to police our streets and neighborhoods on a regular basis, in part because we do not have much, quote, active crime in Oakwood. The reason we make traffic enforcement a high priority in our city is simple. It leads to a safe community, and we are fortunate that we can dedicate the personnel to this important task. We are a walking community. Not just our students, but our citizens love to walk and jog our beautiful streets. We are a major thoroughfare between the largest city in the Miami Valley and our south suburbs. And most importantly, we view traffic enforcement as a positive way to police our city. I find random license plate checks as a proactive way to prevent crime. My guess is that some people in this room tonight have had their plates run as they were driving in our city, and they were not pulled over. That is for one simple reason. They were not breaking the law. It's very simple. If you don't break the law, you won't be pulled over. I find the comments that we may be pulling over one race more than another to be invalid. We most certainly don't restrict anyone from driving in or through our town, buying a home in our town, or having a business in our town. We welcome all. We welcome everyone to use our streets, and we simply ask that you obey the law. That goes for visitors and residents, for all people. Due to our policing efforts, we are a safe community, and I value that as a parent, friend, local businessman, volunteer, and councilman in our wonderful city.
Thank you, Councilmember Stevens. Anyone else want to make comments? So we will go to our visitors section tonight. I assume that there are quite a few people that wish to address council. What we would like to do is not break the record of 2 a.m. that we had a couple years ago. So I would encourage the people to come down and state your name and address for the record. Try to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Try not to make, repetitive or duplicate comments that other people have said. We on council, again, in the interest of time, may choose to ask you a question or a clarification, but we do not intend to get in any significant dialogue with the citizens tonight, because what we want to do is hear as many of your comments as possible, and then we will plan at a later time to deliberate on all of those. So with those simple ground rules, who wants to be first? Again, welcome, and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Dan Turbin, and I live at 204 Ford Boulevard for 30 years. The recent newspaper articles regarding the purported discriminatory practices of the Oakwood Police Department have been unsettling and, in my opinion, do not represent the Oakwood that I know. In the 30 years that I have lived in Oakwood, I have never experienced or even seen a vestige of discrimination. One of the adjectives used to describe Oakwood in a recent Dayton Daily News article was a chilly climate toward people of color. What I've experienced is a warm, giving, and accepting community. Oakwood, in my opinion, has always worked to make people welcome. I want neighbors who maintain their property and obey the laws regardless of their skin color. I've lived through the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and I served in the U.S. Air Force 12 years after President Truman desegregated the military. I witnessed discrimination firsthand and have never seen or heard anything than full acceptance of all minority groups in Oakwood. We're fortunate to have an outstanding group of law enforcement professionals in our safety department. I want a safety department staffed by the best law enforcement professionals regardless of race or gender. Oakwood's policy is to hire the best law enforcement professionals regardless of gender and race, and I hope that continues. Citizen of Oakwood, I want a safety department that aggressively enforces traffic laws, and I hope that also continues. I do not know the motivation of the ABLE project or Professor Hurley, but their conclusions do not represent the Oakwood I know.
I'm sorry, thank you. Who else would like to address council? Please come down and state your name and address for the record. Welcome.
My name is Sam Dorff, and I live at 101 Oak Knoll Drive here in lovely Oakwood. And I was really struck by the agenda of today's city council meeting because I think it represents the best of our public safety officers, who I think everyone in this room can say are fantastic and do a wonderful job keeping our city safe and keeping our citizens safe. And I want to make sure that our public safety officers and their leadership know that we are greatly appreciative for all the work that they do in our city. So, first, a thank you. That said, because of course there's a that said, right? I think there are some issues with the policy, and I disagree with your reading of the ABLE report. I think the policies really can be changed. And I think they will have positive impacts on the city, not just in the ways in which the public safety officers engage with citizens, as well as guests driving through the city, but also about the perception of the city and the perception of Oakwood in the greater Miami Valley. I also am struck by Rabbi Mengel's note about, he said that it's a new Oakwood. And you also made reference to the discriminatory practices of the city in the past. But I think it's also important to recognize that it is a new Oakwood, right? Changes are happening, but we're still young in this sort of, in this new Oakwood world, and I think this is an opportunity, right? One of the things that you said you'll continue to do is seek input to continue these policies, but I think this is time, it's an excellent time for City Council to not just seek input, but to put together perhaps a task force or a citizens group of people that are interested in issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the city. Not just in terms of traffic enforcement, but in other areas of the city. And I hope that City Council would welcome the construction of a task force that would report to City Council on a regular basis about issues of diversity, equity, and I'm sure some of my other colleagues can talk about a little bit more, you know, we have sociologists who can talk a little bit more about the details and the methods of this study and other ways in which we can assess issues of racial disparity and racial discrimination across our city. And I think that there are other metrics than the ones that you put out, but I'll let that. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who else would like to address council? Come on down and state your name and address for the record, and welcome.
Thanks. Grant Neely, 123 Oak Knoll.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Grant Neely, 123 Oak Knoll Drive.
Welcome.
I would ask you, and quickly missed Abe Abel's report of a statistical methodological point, but you also then went on to repeatedly talk about random license plate checks. There's no way they can be random. There has to be a system in place. Unless you're going to stop all cars at once, take a survey of the entire roadway, and select out at random a license plate check. Those aren't random stops. Those are stops or runs of the license plates that are done through some type of a policy. And I think that that is at the heart of all of the methods that were done here. Is the study as it was done was to check the available data that they had, which admittedly is incomplete. But for you to say random license plate checks, it's not random because there is a system in place. And I think what the observation of a casual observer who would drive through Oakwood on Far Hills would notice a preponderance of those pulled over are African American drivers. So I would say let's not talk about randomness, because it's not random. The police have a certain system by which they run license plate checks. They don't run everyone, but there is a policy in place where they are running those. I think part of our question is, what is that policy by which they are choosing to run those license checks? Because it's not random, not the correct term to use. There is a system in place.
Thank you. Who else would like to address council? Come down, state your name and address for the record, and welcome.
Welcome, thank you. My name is Leslie Pica. I live at 317 Delwood Avenue. I want to reiterate, I think, something that Dr. Dorff said earlier about this conversation not being about anti-policing, which is what I think sometimes that's how it's perceived to be. So many of us certainly are very supportive and express deep gratitude. This really, I would like to look a little bit more at the comment that you said about the perception problem, and you said that that wasn't true. Because it's not true doesn't necessarily mean that there's not an impact for it, and I can appreciate individual people saying that that's not their experience, but certainly we know there's quite a bit of qualitative data that's out there that does examine many folks of color, particularly African American individuals, who don't feel safe in Oakwood. So I think a comment was made about all citizens feeling comfortable in the streets. That is certainly not true for many folks of color, especially African Americans in the broader area. And this is something that hurts all of us in Oakwood, not just simply folks of color, but there certainly is a perception problem. I'll just speak, I work at the University of Dayton, in which on the UD campus, Oakwood is seen by many individuals as being a racist community. That's not the kind of community that I necessarily want to work in. And again, this has nothing to do with public safety as much as those broader structural issues. I would encourage us to think not even so much about anti-bias training, but reframing it as an inclusive training, and perhaps not necessarily just for public safety, but also potentially for city council as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Come down and state your name and address for the record, and welcome.
If he wants to be part of it. I just want, Ellen Walters, 474 Lookout. The previous statement, if you work at University of Oakwood residents, there are
Wait, stop in it. A lot of people are watching this tonight at home, and they can't hear you when you address the audience, so preference
I
would
don't
be...
even know that this is on.
It is on.
Okay, it's very hard to hear in the back.
And you should be addressing council and not the audience.
Okay, well...
Okay. But you can start over.
Okay, well, I've been an Oakwood resident for over 56 years, and over the years, my husband has had 2 tickets, my son has been stopped, my daughter was followed closely until she reached city limits because she was going to her overnight job at one of the TV stations. So I don't feel that race, enters into all of the traffic. Probably the majority of the families in town have had the same experience. Everybody's probably got someone in their family that's been stopped or been ticketed. You learn to obey the laws, and you just cope with the consequences. Even if you think you were wrongly accused, you learn to drive slower in the future. It's only a ticket after all. No one was hurt. Almost every time I've driven through a school zone, someone zooms by me. I would love the officers to ticket them. I see we have more bullards knocked down on Far Hills at Patterson. We haven't even gotten the ones repaired yet on Dixon. Someone is driving poorly, crashing into things. This is a walking community. Children could have been behind those bullards when they were crashed into. One of our children went to Miami, and I take the 725 back roads down to Oxford. 50 years ago, when I was looking at Oxford, I knew that Trenton was a town that was a speed trap. You slowed down before you approached that town. You went slower than the speed limit as you drove through it. Oakwood should be treated the same way. You know that we have a reputation as strict on traffic laws. Heed the speed limit. We're a walking, biking, jogging community, and following the traffic laws is imperative. As you drive through the state of Ohio down I-75, you learn to know that there are certain speed trap areas there. You plan your trip accordingly. You drive accordingly. And before you move here, you knew about the open traffic laws. It's a long-standing reputation. I don't feel that the diversity issue is a reputation here, and if the University of Dayton professors live here and they feel that the diversity issue is a problem, they should, as Oakwood residents, feel it imperative upon them to try to set the record straight with the students at UD that have that bad feeling. The public safety officers exist solely to protect the citizens here in Oakwood. If you are violating our laws, endangering our citizens, then you are in the wrong. Please abide by the rules or take Dixie Drive or Wilmington Pike. Our officers do an excellent job with policing, EMS and fire. We value them all dearly, and we're willing to pay more in our taxes to have such a superior public safety department. Thank you to our officers.
Thank you. You need to state your name and address for the record as well.
I will. Okay, my name is Steve Walters.
Steve?
Steve Walters.
Walters.
And I live at 474 Lookout Ridge. I just want to say, I didn't know what to expect coming to the meeting. I'm gratified with the, and concur with the results that you guys have reached, and feel good about that. As my wife Ellen mentioned, we've been members of the community for more than 50 years. And I've had a number of interactions with the Oakwood Police. My first interaction with the Oakwood Police was when I was in high school at Oakwood with my girlfriend, now wife, and we won a raffle ahead of the Beachcombers Ball our junior year. And the raffle got us a ride to the ball and from the ball by the chief of police of Oakwood. And so that was my first real kind of interaction with the police. There have been a couple of times where I've ended up calling 911. The first time, my wife and I heard a crashing sound in our basement, and we looked at each other, didn't know what that could be or might be. We ran outside to our next door neighbor. This was in the time before cell phones. We went to their house and called 911. In less than 30 seconds, an Oakwood police car pulled up, and 2 police officers got out with shotguns and went through the house. And it turns out that our cat had somehow gotten down into the basement and had knocked the ironing board over. So, but we really appreciated the almost instantaneous response. The other time that I called 911, I did so inadvertently. We had installed an alarm system in the house, and I accidentally set it off, and the dialer dialed, and before I could stop it, it had contacted the police. And so I picked up the phone and called the police back and said, look, there's no need to come. And the dispatcher said, well, the officer's pulling into your driveway right now. And I walked to the door, and it hadn't even been 20 seconds, and the police were in the driveway. We explained the situation to them, and everything was fine. Believe me, as a resident here, I appreciate that kind of response. I've also had 2 traffic interactions. One time, I was going 22 miles an hour in the school zone on Far Hills, and I got stopped, and I was going 22. And they let me go with a warning. Everything was fine. The second time that I was stopped, and this is really the only complaint at all that I have, I was on Schroyer with my young son in a child seat in the back of the car, and I was going 38 or 39 miles an hour on Schroyer. An officer pulled out, lit me up. I pulled off to the side, and I got a ticket for going 50 miles an hour. And I thought that was unjustified. I thought it was ridiculous. I was all ready to hire a lawyer and try to go fight at City Hall, you guys. I called a friend of mine who was a former classmate at Oakwood, and at that time was also the mayor of Oakwood, Maryland. And he said, Steve, don't fight it. It's not worth it. Just pay the fine and walk away from it. And I said, yeah, I wasn't going 50 miles an hour. So just get it. So again, I think that I'm overall in the grand balance of things, I'm extremely happy with the service provided by our public safety department, and I'm happy that they have strict enforcement of the traffic laws here. And I think that's one of the sort of the values of the community, and I want to make sure that we maintain that.
Very good.
Thanks
Thank
very
you
much.
for your comments. If people tell our court that they know this current mayor, I tell them the fine is double. So that's a joke. Who else wants to address council? Come down, welcome, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I'm John Ennis. I live on Wisteria Drive, Oakwood. I'm a newcomer here. I was in the Air Force and lived all over the place, so I don't know. People talk about history. All I know is that today, this is a very nice city. I've lived lots of places. And this is a gem of a city that is a surprise to a lot of people. You know, you can go all over and look for a nice place to live. I came from Boston suburb. You know, we thought we were going to find a nice little utopia in the Boston suburbs. We actually found it right here in Oakwood. Fantastic city. And one of the reasons it's a nice city is because it's safe. Oakwood's small. All the areas around Oakwood have a higher crime rate. That's not by chance. That's because we have good police enforcement. We have good police who enforce the law, and we enforce traffic laws, which deters bigger crimes. The ABLE study makes some correlative observation. And correlation doesn't equal causation. Everyone should know that. Without knowing a lot of these facts, like the underlying crime rates of the traffic going through Oakwood, the underlying crime rates of the different distributions that ABLE wants to look at, you don't know if you're just simply measuring what really exists or you're measuring bias. And they make no attempt to figure out the difference. And I think it's a little bit unsettling that people are so willing to accept an accusation of bias. That's offensive unless you have strong data to support it. That's a serious accusation. And to just throw it out there based upon a correlation on what you measure is inadequate. If ABLE wants to make a meaningful correlation, they need to have those offense rates. They need to make an attempt to get that data. They don't make any attempt to do that. Without demonstrating enforcement out of proportion to the offense rates, which is key to ABLE's argument they're trying to make, then you can't draw any conclusion. You may be observing something that exists in society. You may be observing something that exists in the traffic going down Far Hills. So besides potentially being offensive, how else is ABLE's report harmful? There's a well-known police theory called broken window policing. For example, when someone goes into an area where there's widespread graffiti, I don't know about you, but that makes me nervous. It's not the graffiti that's dangerous. It's the underlying lawlessness that it represents. Aggressive policing of small crimes helps prevent the bigger crimes from happening. Individuals who are anti-police or anti-enforcement for their political reasons will attack this kind of policing from many angles. I recently read in the news about a drug enforcement raid in Oakwood on Far Hills next to the elementary school. Aggressive traffic enforcement increases the likelihood that persons involved in the drug trade will come in contact with law enforcement. Hopefully, this would make them decide there are better areas to relocate their criminal activities to have more lax law enforcement. There was another one right outside of Oakwood city limits of a robbery of a cell phone store in Kettering. The biggest danger here is that policing would be reduced as a response to the report. Increased crime rate occurs in the area, leading to lower property values, lower tax revenue, and a vicious cycle. This has happened to other cities. I request that the City Council considers a response to the ABLE letter not reducing police enforcement, but increasing police enforcement with the addition of red light and speed enforcement cameras on the major thoroughfare. Cameras cannot be accused of bias, even if the citations they produce do not distribute the way ABLE thinks they should. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service. Who else would like to address council? Yes, please, come down, state your name and address for the record, and welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Tony Smith. I live on 11 Delwood Avenue here in Oakwood. Just want to make a couple brief comments. And first of all, say that, like a number of other people here, I don't think this should be seen as simply a police issue. I want to recognize the good work that the police officers do here in Oakwood. But I do have a story, and it involves the police, but it's not just about the police. So I've lived here a number of years. I like to run in the neighborhood. And a little while ago, not too long ago, I was running on Delwood, and a police car slows down and stops me. And the police officer was very courteous, very respectful. But she said something very interesting. She said, we've got some calls about you, and people are complaining about how you run.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I said, okay. She said, people want you to be more careful. And we ended very politely. But I thought afterwards, like, who would have the time to call the cop on a 55-year-old guy running on Delwood, right? A neighbor here. And it felt a little bit like an Oakwood version of Mrs. Kravitz from Bewitched, right? Remember the neighbor lady who...
I do. Many people in the room do not.
Right. Well, I'm sure many people do. Mrs. Kravitz, whose job was to police the boundaries of normalcy, right? Mm-hmm. And so I use that just as a little personal anecdote because I can at least grant the possibility that the report that the results of the ABLE report indicated may not even stem, or at least completely from the police public safety, but it might actually originate from expectations or perceptions of expectations about what the community wants and its relative comfort with difference and diversity. And I guess the question, I want to just make a comment and raise a concern that whether the community's threshold and level of tolerance for diversity can have some potentially really deleterious consequences for people, particularly people of color, who either live here or drive through the community. And also whether a low level of tolerance for difference is actually undermining the stated and very laudable goals of the community of being inclusive and being diverse and being hospitable and being neighborly. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to address council? Okay, well, we'll have you go first and then you in the back next. Welcome. Could you state your name and address for the record?
I'm Megan Henning. I live at 951 East Shantz Avenue. And I thank you for your report and for all of the work you do. I also moved here from Boston a number of years ago, and I was a elected town meeting member for 3 years, so I understand what it's like to be doing town government on the local level and to be doing it for not very much. So I also want to thank the safety officers and our wonderful police force here in Dayton, as well as the fire squad. So the things that I've heard tonight sound, well, first of all, when I was standing in the back of the room and someone who made comments earlier walked out and said, oh, this is going to be a firing squad here tonight, one of the police officers. And then a number of people have made comments that sound defensive and even maybe edging on angry. I want to be clear that the interest in diversifying Oakwood is not about an anti-police sentiment, and nor is it true that the assertion that bias among any subset of society is offensive. Studies demonstrate that bias is something that's common to all of us, myself included. I have biases that I am sometimes not aware of, and they impact my decision making, and I don't find that offensive. I find that to be reality. I think that it's helpful when I am given the opportunity to reflect on those things, to think about that. And I want to continue to live in a community where people are interested in making that community better. That's one of the things that I love about Oakwood, that the citizens take great ownership of the town and the space that we live in. And so I don't see the ABLE study or the interest of many of the citizens who've already spoken this evening in focusing on diversity in our community to be anti-Oakwood or anti-police. I myself am a person who loves living in Oakwood, and I care deeply about making this community the best that it for myself, for my children, and for hopefully the rest of the community as well. And so I guess what I would like to see is for council to continue to take seriously the things that are said and to not approach this conversation in a spirit of defensiveness, because I don't think that that will lead to us working together as a community to create change. I think that that will stymie the conversation.
Thank you very much. In the back. State your name and address for the record, and welcome.
Good evening, Your Honor. Jan Kelly, resident, 254 Telford Avenue. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I really feel compelled to speak. I've lived here 21 years now. I moved my family from Fort Lauderdale in Broward County, and I got accused of calling it Under the Dome, and I didn't realize that wasn't a really good name for it, but I continue with that because of the great place that I was able to raise my children, who are now successful young adults living in Florida, and the safety that I feel living in this community. And for able just to throw a bunch of accusations up, hope some of the mud sticks to the wall, is really irresponsible on their part. And I defend what you do, I defend our community, and I am offended that these accusations would be made against us, not only as a community, but as each individual. That's all I want to say, and I thank you for and the good stewardship that this council and the mayor has done throughout the years that I've lived.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Who else would like to address council? Please come state your name and address for the record, and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Duncan and Council. Tim Benford, 28 years.
I know you.
132 Greenmount Boulevard, that's right. Well, firstly, I'd like to just report my law enforcement story. 28 years ago, first week on Greenmount Boulevard, with 2 children in the back, drove down Greenmount Boulevard west to Far Hills, turned right down the wrong lane. First vehicle I came across was an Oakwood police vehicle, and I was stopped, treated very well indeed. But yeah, very embarrassing. My children didn't talk to me for a week. Just wanted to read briefly an email that I sent to the council on the 4th of November, and then just ask what your thoughts are. With respect to the concerns about lack of diversity, racially unequal traffic stops, and the need to improve Oakwood's reputation as a place where everyone can feel comfortable to live, I think that if you don't have one, a diversity inclusion council is what is needed. It would have members from the city, safety department, the council, and the community. And in my view, such a council would help inoculate Oakwood from the criticism that it wasn't doing enough about this topic. With the representation and participation of all these interested groups, it would ensure that everyone felt that their concerns were being dealt with. It sounds as though you've got a lot of very powerful action items in the report, but it sounds quite internal. Perhaps getting more of the community involved would help inoculate the council, the city, from this concern that there's racial inequality in the city.
All right. Thank you very much. Who else? Please come down and state your name and address for the record. Welcome.
Lindsay Banning, and I'm at 335 Wiltshire. I didn't necessarily want to be here, nor did I plan on speaking tonight. We actually have a babysitter tonight, so we could go out, and we're here. So
date night? Is that what this is? Is date night?
This is date night, guys. So I feel a little compelled to speak because I'm standing here. I'm a psychologist. Husband's a psychologist. We're active duty. We've lived a variety of places. And I'm standing here watching this community try to come together around this issue. And I really appreciate the conversation that's happening. It excites me. It excites my kids. My kids are young. They're 7 and 11, and they are reading the newspaper. I apologize, I don't know which ones they are. There's 2 newspapers that come to our house, and they get so excited, and they read it, and they were super excited to see that race and equity was being addressed in the paper, right? And I know that it's probably not the spin that anybody wants to see, but they were excited about that because they have seen the way that we, in all honesty, the way that we fail in terms of race and equity in this community. And they're also really excited about the possibility that maybe it could be a little bit different. And I think that conversations like tonight and the one in the past that I was not present for, that wasn't date night, I think that this is a good place to start, right? But I agree with the comment earlier about the defensiveness, and it really bums me out, in all honesty, to see that happening, because I think there's a real opportunity here. And the main thing that I wanted to say is that as I look around this room, right, we are a bunch of white people talking about how people of color in this community feel. And we're making a lot of assumptions, and we know from study upon study upon study that this is something that people of color struggle with in every single community in this country. We're not different. We are not different. And we are a bunch of white people who are sitting here making assumptions and feeling good about what we're doing, right? But it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So thank you to Tim and the other people, Prisha, who's laughing at me right now, right? Thank you. Thank you for those people who are suggesting that maybe we could do a little bit better. Maybe we don't have to look at this and say, oh my God, no. We didn't do that. We're not those people, right? If we're not those people, then let's show everybody we're not those people. And let's form some committees, and let's really look at this, and let's really do something. There's no harm in that. There's only good to be had from that. So thank you for letting us speak. Thank you for bringing this to the table. And thank you to my community for stepping up and saying we're going to do better.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. My name is Krisha Orsello. I live at 37 Park Road. You probably don't recognize me because I just moved here not long ago. So I'm sorry I don't know the history of Oakwood. We too are a military family. Like many military families, we find ourselves, we look for the best school districts. That's what I was a former teacher for the Department of Defense. So my first and only criteria that I put towards every new move is where the best schools, and we pick solely on that. So I love our Oakwood schools. I love our teachers. I love everything about that, and that's why we came. So I have to say, I appreciate you guys being willing, but I do have to say, what Lindsay said I thought was really striking, because it is a room full, and with all respect, all due respect, white people saying that they don't feel uncomfortable here. So what I would like to challenge you guys to do, and just be open to this, because I think every council needs to have this. Everybody needs it nowadays. And I was excited when we got here over all the wonderful opportunities that we have. I was not excited over the way that there was a lack of diversity in Oakwood. I'll be really honest, there are not a lot of Hispanic women here, just to start off, okay? And that is okay. But I want us to be able to open the door of what does it feel like to be a minority here, not from just a report, because I can't speak for the report. And also, I love our officers. I really do. I love that they come. I do. I love them. So I have to say, I love that I know that someone is on our streets all the time. When I walked my son to preschool and I would go down Far Hills, I loved that somebody was pulling down somebody who was going over 20 miles per hour. I would cheer them on, okay? That is not a problem here. Because when my husband was in the military and Obama reversed the don't ask, don't tell with the homosexuals, it had nothing to do with my husband being in the military. It had to do with the system that was broken. And what he did is he fixed something that was really broken. And so when we come to you guys, we are not saying our police officers are the problem. I do not feel that at all. What I feel is that there is a system in our country that we need to look at. And like Lindsay said and the others said, it's really simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be met with defense and with arguments, because nobody wants that. Nobody wants that in our lives. We have enough. We all have enough. What I want to be able to say is, yes, I live in a city of Oakwood where there are probably about 5 Hispanic women. I don't know how many there are of us. I don't know. You guys could tell me. But regardless, I live in a really small number of a minority group. But my city is open to diversity, and here's why. And I could list them all off. And I could say, yes, you'll get pulled over. I have people come to my house all the time from Kettering, and I warn them before they come in, you must slow down. And that is not a problem for me, because I want people to be stopped if they're going too fast. However, please let us try to come with a system that says, let's ask minorities how they feel, those of us that are law-abiding, those of us that live here and are invested in this place, even if it's just a short amount of time, we still have an experience. And you will find probably most of us will say we love it. But you also might find that some of us say, this is kind of, maybe we could change that. They're probably easy fixes, but knowing that we can be open to it is a world of difference. That's where it makes us different here. So I just ask you guys to just be aware that everyone who speaks may not have the same experience as the person of color. So not everyone can say that, but I want to represent, I am not African American, and I will not say I have their experience, but it is scary when you're pulled over and you don't know, did I do something, what's going on, it is very scary. So I just want us to form a committee. I don't care if I'm on it, but get some minorities on it, okay? Let's not make it a committee of a bunch of white people telling white people that they feel good. Let's do something different. Let's be better than the average city in America. Let's do more. Let's raise the bar. Let's show people that not only do we have an excellent police department, but we have an excellent city council that can do more and show people that we care. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else would like to address council? Take your name and address for the record and welcome.
Hello, Major Earl Banning. I'm 335 Wiltshire Avenue in Oakwood. Thank you for giving me this time to address everybody. I would just like to say, as an active duty service member, this is one of the communities that we got plopped into, so we didn't know what to expect. We do love it here. There's a lot of strengths about Oakwood. Thank you for your service, public service to the officers. Thank you for what you do as well. I felt compelled to speak because in living in this community, you do start to realize some things. So there's a saying about fish don't know that they're underwater. And I feel that kind of represents Oakwood in a way, where there's a bunch of people who are in charge, people in power, people on the force who are white and saying, we don't have a problem with racism here. And I don't know if that's true. And I think this study is showing that there's some disparities in the people who are pulled over. It's a warning sign, and it's a sign of an underlying problem that we can focus on, we can address, we can treat, but we can't stare at our navel and pretend like it doesn't exist. So we need to do something. We need to come together, have some sort of a way to figure out what we can do to strengthen our community and address the person, rather than just pretending like everything's okay. One of the really cool things about the Air Force is you get to live in a lot of different places. You get to live with work with a lot of different people that you never would think you would work with. And I have a coworker right now, so I'm a neuropsychologist and African American, and she said she does not drive through Oakwood because she's afraid. Where does that come from? That's not by accident. She's lived here for a few years, and she has friends that say the same thing. So that bothers me. I live in this community. I love it. I want it to be better. I want to be part of the solution. So that's why I just wanted to speak up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. Who else would like to address City Council? Didn't you already speak once? Is there anybody else that wants to speak? Yeah, we'll let you. We may let you go last. Okay. Right. Who else wants? Okay. Welcome.
I'm Hilly Jackson, and I live at 118 Lonsdale. And with the ABLE report, the tragedy of the ABLE report is, to me, that it recreate or draws much attention to the perception that Oakwood is not open to people. So I can't dispute what the facts of the report as much as it creates conversations such as this, which I think is a good thing, but it also, the press here, it really perpetuates the unsubstantiated belief that Oakwood is just unwelcome. And I think that's the problem with the report. Several people have made the suggestion that there should be a committee. And what I would like to do is to challenge anyone here or anyone listening to take the lead with that. I'm not sure why we expect our legislators to do that for us. It's something we can do for ourselves. Someone that we can write a proposal for what the committee would hope to accomplish. Who would be on the committee? It takes a great deal of time and effort to do that. But I've had the concern for years, and I've never done it. And I would challenge someone here to do it. What I have done is to try to make Oakwood as welcoming in my own ways. For example, I'm a member of the Gem City grocery co-op. In other words, I go to those
Salem
meetings.
Avenue?
Yes, on Salem Avenue, because I want those people to see that people from Oakwood would come to their grocery. And so just in a small way, I go, I participate. It's something I can do when I don't have the energy to create a committee and to manage a committee. As individuals, if we work with people of color, why not invite them to have a meeting in our home? If it's for volunteer work or if it's just work associate. If there's a suggestion to go to lunch, why not bring them into one of Flyboys or Central Perk so that they can feel comfortable in our community? If there has to be a meeting, why don't we reserve a room at Wright Library and have the meeting there? So they, again, at our invitation, are brought into our community. So many people in our community volunteer for at DECA or at Ruskin School, at Food Bank, all those things, and yet we don't talk about that. It's something as individuals we can. My point is that I think that too many of us are looking to our city leaders to do something for us rather than us coming to the table with a real proposal. So that's what I wanted to challenge.
Thank you for your comments. Who else would like to address council? All right, if we give Sam the podium, we will be done with the visitor section, so speak now or forever hold your peace. Welcome back.
I think the last comment, I think, is it's an excellent point, right? And I, but it also is it behooves the city council to take the lead on this too, right? So I believe that there are a number of citizens in this room, outside this room, that would be eager to help, right? And I think it's also it's the responsibility of the city council to respond to us when we reach out to you. A number of us did reach out on November, right after the last meeting, and many of us didn't get responses. And so I'll just say that I thought that was unfortunate of the city council members who didn't respond. And I hope that as you consider putting together a citizens group to look at some of these issues, that you'll also bring in some of our faith leaders in the city as well. I don't want to embarrass Rabbi Ginsburg. Rabbi Ginsburg sitting here of Beth Abraham. I know the Father Jim, I think, at St. Paul's Episcopal, sent out a message to his congregants about some of these issues as well. So I think that there's a really robust group of people that would be interested in doing this. I urge council to consider doing that. I'll be happy to, if you want to respond to my email anytime, I'll be happy to help follow that. Thank you.
Thank you. This will conclude the visitor section of our report, of our meeting. I would say that we appreciate all of the comments we got. We thought they were very thoughtful, and one of the exciting parts about what we used to call community ambiance around here is that we can have a bunch of people with a lot of different opinions and can get together and talk about it civilly. Unfortunately, I spent a whole lot of time watching that crap going on in Washington, D.C. this morning, and I really appreciate all of your community service for coming up with some thoughtful ideas as opposed to just saying the other person's an idiot. So with that, we will take all of your comments under consideration, and in response to not getting back to a lot of people, this city staff has spent an inordinate amount of time trying to respond transparently to the ABLE report and trying to, trying to understand their statistical validity if we felt it was. And so a lot of that was due to the fact that we were still making editing changes yesterday around 5 o'clock. So we will reach out to you, and again, thank you all for coming. We're going to do a lot of cool legislation, and so you're all welcome to stay here if you'd like. If not, we'll give you a couple minutes to leave, and we'll move on.
There's plenty of room in here.
Yes.
Exactly.
I need to find my agenda here. Can I look at your agenda? Never mind, I have it. All right. Let's go ahead and start with legislation. Hopefully we can get through this rather quickly. Mr. Stevens, you have an ordinance regarding our traffic laws.
Thank you, Mayor Duncan. An ordinance to approve current replacement pages to the Oakwood Traffic and General Offenses Codes. Each year we pass an annual housekeeping ordinance to align our local traffic and criminal ordinances with changes that have been made at the state level. This ordinance will adopt our 2019 replacement pages for the Traffic Code and General Offenses Code, and although this is the second reading, it is being presented as an emergency ordinance so the updates can be incorporated into our codes by the beginning of 2020. I move that council adopt this as an emergency ordinance for the reasons stated in the ordinance.
I'm sorry, any other comments or questions for Councilmember Stevens? Hearing none, Lori, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Duncan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton?
Yes.
Mr. Epley?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Epley has an ordinance regarding our stormwater fees.
Thank you, Your Honor. An ordinance to amend Appendix A, Public Services Rate Sheet of the Oakwood Streets and Public Services Code to increase the stormwater fee. This is an ordinance to make modest increase in the rate of our stormwater utility services. The city operates 4 services as public utilities: water, sanitary sewer, stormwater, and refuse. Each of these services are supported entirely by user fees and not by general tax revenues. To meet operational and upcoming capital needs for our stormwater utility, City Manager has recommended increasing the monthly stormwater management fee from $7 to $10 per residential unit for equivalent residential unit. This fee increase was presented to the Citizen Budget Review Committee as part of the 2020 budget briefing on October 15th, and their response is positive. Our stormwater rate has not been increased since 2017. The first reading of this ordinance, so I make no motion at.
Thank you, Mr. Epley. We will now go to Vice Mayor Byington regarding our budget.
Yes, this is an ordinance to make an appropriation for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Oakwood, State of Ohio, during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020. Your Honor, this is an annual budget ordinance which appropriates the city's funding for 2020. This ordinance is required under Section 6.05 of the city charter, and when adopted, provides formal authorization to the city manager to spend public dollars in providing city services. Our total city budget is divided into 5 primary parts with budgeted spending in each as follows. General city services is $13,407,933. Our refuse is $1,655,376. Our water utility is $1,171,688. Our sanitary sewer utility is $1,866,190. And our stormwater utility is $530,044. The city manager and finance director will now make a presentation of the budget.
Good evening, Your Honor. Happy to be here again. Seems like time really flies. It was a year ago that Cindy and I stood here, and I'm going to go through a series of slides here regarding our 2020 budget. But before I do that, I'm going to highlight a few of the things that have occurred here in Oakwood in 2019. I just think it's important to I know you're well aware of all these items, but to kind of share these with the community, I think is of value. So let me start with our new website. We went live with a brand new city website back in roughly June timeframe, and it was a complete redo, and it really got our website up to using the latest technology. It works wonderfully with any kind of smartphone, handheld device, as well as any kind of computer system. So major improvements, very, very easy to use, and if any citizens have not used it yet, I encourage them to just log on and give it a shot. You can really find a lot of good information. The Smith Gardens, as you know, was given to the city 45 years ago, and this year we held several, I would say, events here to celebrate that incredible gift, Oakwood. And when you look around the community at the things that make Oakwood special, we all talked about public safety being important, our schools being important, but one of the other very important parts is Smith Garden. So that was a great anniversary. We completed a number of street projects this year. We continue to invest in our roadway infrastructure, both asphalt and concrete. As the chief mentioned earlier, we had our 2nd annual Citizen Police Academy, and that was a very successful program. When the chief and I first talked about this, we were wondering if we would get enough citizens to sign up each year, and based on the first 2 classes, I would say that we're definitely going to achieve that. The safety department also established the ACORN program, assisting and contributing to Oakwood resident needs, and it's geared towards our elderly residents, in particular those who may not have family here in the local Dayton region, Oakwood area, etc. And we have a number of citizens that are signed up for that program. It's a great way for us through the safety department to touch base with folks and provide assistance as needed. The Russell Wealth Management building was completed this year. Took a little under a year to build it. That business is now operating at Sugar Camp, and it's a wonderful new addition to our community. The 84 units of Element Oakwood are almost completed. The first folks are scheduled to move in either in January or sometime in February. And the folks from Hills Properties who built those condos expect that they'll be fully leased by sometime in 2020. They're predicting possibly as early as summertime of 2020. And several of us took a tour of them recently and saw the quality of those units. The safety department also put in place this year a formal fire inspection program focused on our businesses, and the entire effort was about education and being helpful to the businesses in terms of what infrastructure or other improvements could be made within their buildings to make them safe and when it comes to fire issues. Our finance department put in place an online billing system, and it's been extremely successful, and I guess I'll let Cindy say a word or two about that.
We're very excited. Since the first of, let's see, March, I guess, the first week of March, we've had almost 2,600 transactions go through that. So we're looking forward to more and more people seeing it, using it, and if there's any questions, we're always available to answer those.
We most recently, in the last month or so, upgraded the cardboard drop-off facility by the Krieger Field parking lot by our dog park there, and that was a significant improvement. We recycle an enormous amount of cardboard in Oakwood, and the numbers keep going up each year. And for our regular landfill material, we pay about $38 a ton to dispose of it. For the commingled recycling that we all put in our cans at home, we pay $20 a ton to dispose of that. For the clean cardboard that we collect, why we don't pay a penny. So, pulling what last year amounted to over 100 tons of cardboard out of our refuse stream to send it to a recycler is not only good for the environment, but saves us money. So that's a nice addition. And the lion's share of the cost to improve that was paid for through a recycling grant from Montgomery. Carol and her staff completed a detailed assessment of our 3 primary parks and a couple of our other smaller parks, and we're putting together now a long-range plan for some major capital improvements, and also a shorter list of smaller improvements that we can make over the winter months so that when those parks open next April, they'll be in good shape. In our water utility, we completed some improvement projects both at our water tower and at one of our water softening plants, and I'll just say tonight that we continue to maintain the infrastructure of our water system, provide the best quality water to our residents. Those 2 projects together totaled about $125,000 investment. The Oakwood Historical Society continues to thrive, and I have this on our list here. It's really not a direct function of the city, but we work in close partnership with the Historical Society, and I know last Saturday they had another home tour event, 2nd annual home tour event. By all accounts, it was very, very successful with 500 citizens participating in Northwest. We also, this was also part of the Smith Gardens anniversary. Carol and her staff put together a neat new offering, and that's a festival tree event where a number of folks donated decorated holiday trees, and then they were auctioned off, and I think they raised over $4,000 towards money that goes towards the maintenance and improvements of Smith Gardens. So that was a great event. A plug for our Oakwood Rotary Club. About roughly 10, 11 years ago, one of the members of our club started a quarterly hazardous waste pickup program, and that has continued every quarter since its inception. And on a Saturday morning, you can find information on the website. Just go to the search and hit hazardous waste collect. On one Saturday per quarter, Rotarians will go around the community and pick up any type of hazardous waste and see that it's proper. And the final highlight is, again, our farmers market, which has been in place for several years now, and it takes a lot of work. It's an all volunteer operated, an additional offering here in Oakwood, and they had another successful year, and we look forward to that continuing next year. So those are a few quick highlights from 2019. Now the 2020 budget, I'm going to go through this rather quickly. I know you've seen these slides, but I'm hopeful that there are a few citizens at home that are still watching our meeting tonight or will tune in. Again, through our website, you can watch these videos at your leisure and pick up a little bit of information about our city finance. So I'll start with our revenue sources. This is a line graph that goes back quite a number of years, and I show this each year just so you in the community can get a sense for the importance of the municipal income. You can see the slope of that line and the increasing revenue ideally each year, why that helps us to address escalating costs that we typically see each and every year. And there's a few places in there where you can see over a period of 2 or 3 years, the line rather flat, and that's a function of the economy when we're not seeing our wages in Oakwood going up, while the income tax stays flat. And then if you particularly highlight between 2016 and 18, it's essentially flat. That was a function of other communities in our area raising their rates to equal what Oakwood's rate is. And as you know, the municipal income tax paid goes first to the community in which you work and then to where the community in which you live. So if you live in Oakwood and work in Dayton, the vast majority of your municipal tax goes to the city of Dayton. In fact, before we put the credit limit, 100% of it did because we had the same rate. And I'll point out here that the jump between 2018 and our estimated value in 2019, that is a direct result of the 10% credit reduction that you approved. That we're just now starting to see the recovery of revenue. Again, that's very important revenue to continue providing our service. The property tax, again, this goes back to 1998 as well. The only growth that we see for the city in property tax is when we approve new levies. And you can see in 2008, we actually had a drop in the property tax revenue to the city, and that was a function of city council allowing an existing levy to expire. So the actual amount of money coming in went down. And the last time that we raised our property taxes was via a public vote of a levy in 2013, and you can see the result of that in the increase in revenue in 2014. This pie chart shows the distribution of the earned income in the city of Oakwood. This is tax that our residents are paying based on their earned income, and you can see that 64% is remitted to the city of Oakwood and 36% to the communities in which our residents work. Now, in comparison, if you go back 1 year ago to the pie chart before the 10% credit reduction was in place, you can see the enormous difference here, where over half, or 55%, of the income tax that our residents paid went to other communities, and only 45% stayed in Oakwood. So that's visually the dramatic impact of that 10% reduction. This pie chart I show each year, and it's a reminder of where our property tax dollars go, and you can see the lion's share, almost 70%, funds our outstanding Oakwood public schools. And I'll just draw your attention to the red slice. About 8.5% of the property tax paid in Oakwood is remitted to the city of Oakwood for the services that we provide here from the city. So Vice Mayor mentioned these numbers in the introduction to the legislation. These are the figures in the 5 different categories in terms of how our budget is established. If you're asked the question, what does it cost to run the city of Oakwood and all the public services that we provide, including the utilities, the number is about $18.6 million for 2020. This slide just quickly shows a comparison of the projected or budgeted revenue versus expenses in the 5 different categories. And you can look down, you can see that for the general city services, which again is the largest part of our budget, we're a little over $200,000 to the good in 2020. The refuse is about $300,000 in the red. That's a direct result of a major capital expense, which I'll explain here in a moment. And the other 3, you can see the revenues and expenses are fairly close. Comparing quickly the capital expenses as proposed in 2020 compared to 2019, you can see the numbers are fairly close. The 2 significant, or I guess 3 significant things that are a bit off here in refuse, we have about $100,000 of additional money in 2020, and I'll explain that in a moment. Sanitary sewer is much higher in 2020, which I'll explain. And we do have a storm sewer project planned, which will cost about $160,000 out of our storm sewer use. So in the refuse operation, once every 10, 12, 14 years, we buy a new packer, and you can see this is an older unit we have here, and that's a major expense, $300,000 purchase. But this is obviously one of the, what I call mission essential equipment in the department. And even at a bit of a higher price tag is the sewer vector truck. This thing has lasted 18 years, and in 2020 we're planning to buy. So a few quick highlights, and then I'll be done here. So this slide shows the taxes and fees, and you can see that, as I mentioned, we have the 10% credit reduction in place. For the 2020 budget, we have no plans for raising the water, sanitary sewer, or refuse rates, but we do have as was mentioned earlier, a $3 per month proposed increase in the stormwater. And then you can see the years when the other fees and taxes were last. So we're starting in our general city services funds with about $9.6 million, which equates to about 9 months worth of operating expenses, which is a good place to start for the year. Again, the capital expense is $1.3 million, and we'll end 2020 with over $200,000 more in revenue than what we spent for the year. In refuse, we're starting about $600,000, which is a good starting balance for us. We last raised our rates in 2019. Again, $320,000 for capital. We will be spending the balances down quite a bit, again, for the purchase of the refuse. The water utility starts the year at $1.1 million. We're the 7th lowest water rates here in the greater Miami Valley region. They essentially have a completely balanced budget goes for the water utility. Sanitary sewer has a good starting balance of $1.4 million. We last raised the rates in 2018, and we'll be spending a little bit more 2020 than we bring in, but in large part that's for that sewer vac. And finally, in the stormwater utility, about $300,000. That $3 per month fee increase is necessary to address infrastructure capital improvement needs in our storm sewer system. Even with that increase, we're still budgeting to end the year about $60,000 less than we're bringing in. And then finally, as our chair and vice chair reported at the beginning of the meeting today, this 2020 budget has the support of our 35-member budget committee, as does the $3 per month storm. So that's a quick rundown of some of the details of our 2020 budget, and I'm here to answer any questions, or Cindy is as well. No, she's going to talk briefly about 2019 year to date, but that's all positive as well. And
yeah, all I have left is we have a citizen, you mentioned we have a citizen budget committee that includes 35 members and is equally represented by residents from each of our 7 voting districts. The committee met 4 times this year and as reported earlier this evening by chairs Dave Dickerson, Bill Frappel. They have endorsed the 2020 budget. I also wanted to add that, as was mentioned by Bill Frappel, the level of transparency that our city staff participates with, city manager, and everybody who's involved with this budget, whether it's the budget review committee, is to be commended. That everything is laid out there, and as mentioned by him, I think the residents of Oakwood really appreciate knowing exactly where their money is going towards. For which city manager used to say, you know, our taxes might be high, but we want to make sure that people feel like getting their money's worth. And I think that's something that you can at least see where all that money's going with their own. So with that, I would make a motion that under section 3.04 of the city charter, this ordinance will take effect upon its passage. I move that council waive the second reading and adopt the ordinance this evening.
We have a second. Second. Okay. Any discussion for either our city manager or our vice mayor? Hearing none, Lori, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Duncan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton? Yes. Mr. Epley?
Yes.
And I think you then have a personnel schedule ordinance, Vice Mayor?
Yes, this is an
Byington?
ordinance to repeal ordinance number 4873 and establish an amended personnel schedule dated December 9th, 2019, and declare this an emergency. This ordinance is to update the city's personnel schedule for all non-bargaining unit employees except temporary seasonal employees. The updated schedule authorized pay increases of 2.75 in 2020 and 2.85 in 2021. Pay for the temporary seasonal employees will be increased by 1.75 each of those years. These increases are consistent with raises authorized by the Public Safety Union. The ordinance is being introduced as an emergency measure to ensure that it takes effect as of the first pay period of 2020, begins on December 23rd, 2019. So, as I mentioned, I would move that the council adopt this ordinance tonight as an emergency measure for the reasons stated in the ordinance.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion for Vice Mayor Byington?
I think you read the emergency language, and it's not, it takes effect immediately, but not as an emergency.
Excuse me.
It is not an emergency measure?
Correct. Just a first reading with a waiver of the second reading.
Then I make a motion that we adopt this ordinance tonight, waive second reading.
Okay, any other discussions for Vice Mayor Byington? My only comment to the staff is you have earned this raise, and I am now ready to call the roll.
Mayor Duncan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton? Yes. Mr. Epley?
Yes.
And then we also have a compensation schedule for the court.
Yes, Your Honor. This is an ordinance to set the maximum compensation of the Oakwood Municipal Court clerk, deputy clerk, courts, bailiff, declare an emergency. By law, the Oakwood Municipal Judge determines the actual salary for the court employee. The City Council is responsible for setting the maximum amount to be paid for the job class within the court. This ordinance will increase the maximum compensation for all court employee job class 2.75 2020, 2.85 increase in 2021, consistent with the raises authorized by the public. Move the council adopt this as an emergency ordinance so that these pay increases will be effective, consistent with the timing of pay increases being given to office.
Second.
Second.
Any other discussion? Lori, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Duncan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton?
Yes.
Mr. Epley?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Law Director, what do you
Thank
have?
you. I will take full responsibility for this. I was reading the wrong part of the page when I corrected you, and you were right and I was wrong. I hope everyone at home heard that.
Would you restate what you just said? I want that to be on the record.
Vice Mayor Byington was correct. I was wrong. I will own that for the folks.
Happy New Year to everyone.
That's
So I would just ask that on the
previous
personnel
ordinance.
schedule ordinance that you go ahead and remake your motion with the emergency language and take another
As
vote.
it's written.
On the previous one?
On the previous one. no,
Okay, I
the-
make the motion the council adopt the previous ordinance. Hold on a second. I know, but I make a motion the council adopt the ordinance to repeal the ordinance number 4873 and establish an amended personnel schedule dated December 9th, 2019 and declare an emergency for the reasons stated in the ordinance.
And I believe Mr. Epley seconded that before. Will you please call the roll?
Mayor Duncan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton?
Yes.
Mr. Epley?
Yes.
I'm now re-energized.
There you go.
Okay, Mr. Stevens, I believe you have a resolution.
Resolution authorizing a 10-year participation agreement with the Montgomery County Economic Development Government Equity EDGE program. Montgomery County EDGE program is a regional cooperative program that promotes economic opportunity, business, industrial, commercial, and research facility expansion, and job creation. The City of Oakwood has participated in the Montgomery County EDGE program since its inception in 1991. Our last renewal of the agreement took place in 2011, and we are due to renew our participation again as the county rolls out an updated EDGE plan for 2020. This resolution will authorize Oakwood's participation in the updated program in ways that are feasible and appropriate to the city's needs, resources, and responsibilities in the community. I move the council adopt this resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion for Councilmember Stevens? Hearing none, Lori, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Duncan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton?
Yes.
Mr. Epley?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Byington has our final ordinance of the evening.
Yes, Your Honor, this is an ordinance amending section 147.03, depositories of the Oakwood Administrative Code to update procedures used to designate depositories for the city's active financial deposits. Ordinance updates part of the city's administrative code relating to the city's financial deposits. The code includes an outdated provision that effectively requires the city to engage in a bidding process every 5 years for selecting a bank or banks with which to deposit funds. Procedure made sense years ago when changing banks was as simple as moving the money, signing new signature cards, and obtaining new checks. But banking now involves electronic financial links between the city and a variety of state agencies, wire transfers, ACH deposits, automatic debit, all of which make changing banks a much more onerous and disruptive undertaking. This ordinance streamlines the process by allowing the city to simply renew its depository agreement every 5 years without soliciting new bids. Bidding would only be required in the event the city desires or needs to change banks for a reason. I move that council waive the second reading and adopt this ordinance tonight.
Your second.
Oh, come on.
Okay, Councilmember Epley seconded that. Does this require 4/5 vote, correct? There you go. All right. Any other discussion? Lori, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Duncan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton?
Yes.
Mr. Epley?
That concludes our legislation. We are now going to hear the real finance report from our Cindy Stafford, CPA. Welcome, Cindy.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager, staff, and anyone else who's still out there listening. I will be brief because I know it's been a long night. I did want to talk just a little bit about where we are at the end of November, our new employee that we have in the accounting department, and just really briefly our online payment portal. So the first slide that I have up here is the general city services, and this is through the end of November. This includes everything except refuse, water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater. And as you can see, our receipts, as they pertain to budget, are at 99%. That's really the result of two of our largest revenue streams, income taxes being at 98%, and our property taxes being at 102% of budget. One of the things that we did in order to is put in place our tax credit reduction for income taxes. We had estimated that that would bring in about $600,000, as we had discussed earlier. Through November, we're at about $538,000. That's the biggest increase when we look at why our income taxes are higher than they were in the prior year. The way property taxes are done is the county looks and they across the board look at a 5% non-collection. In Oakwood, we're a lot higher than that. We're actually probably about 98, 99%, which is why our property taxes are at 102. The county looks at us when we set our budget, so that our budget is set at the amount that they anticipate, which looks at a 95% collection factor. We also were very lucky this year in the fact that our investments brought in about $30,000 more than they have in the past. That's just partly the market that we can invest in has bounced back a little bit. It's not the greatest. It's still only around between 1.5% and 2% is our yields on most of our investment. But it's getting better, and hopefully it will continue to increase. And the other big income item that we had this year, and we've seen this happen in the past, is with workers' comp. We received a rebate of about $134,000. The rebate was based on the workers' tax expense that we had paid in 2017. So we paid it in 2017, and they gave it back to us in 2019. This seems to be something that happens every 2-3 years with workers' comp. If you look at our disbursements year to date, we're at 82%. We operate the city, as do most cities around us, on a cash basis, meaning it looks just like your check does. Cash comes in, paychecks, and our expenditures go out. What's not included in this slide is our encumbrance. Those are the bills that haven't been paid yet because we either haven't been invoiced yet, work is not quite finished, or we have made commitments for expenses that will happen before the end of the year. If we look at that percentage, we're at about 90%, which in November we would be closer to about 92% of our budget. So we're at 90% with our encumbrances. With that being said, if you were to ask me today where I think we're going to end this year, I would say that we will definitely end the year with revenues exceeding in the general city services slightly above budget and expenditures just slightly below budget. So I think we're definitely in the positive. The next slide talks about our refuse fund, and as you can see, we're at 91% of receipts, and disbursements are at 80%. If we add encumbrances into that, we're about 84%. There was a capital item that we postponed buying this year, which we will be purchasing next year. So again, the refuse fund will end the year with receipts fairly close to what we anticipate for budget and disbursements below what we anticipated. The last three are enterprise funds: water, sanitary, sewer, and stormwater. I've kind of grouped them all together. Receipts are at 96%. When I say that, water is all dependent upon the weather. And so every year when I budget for receipts for water and an offshoot of water, obviously the water has to go somewhere. Sanitary sewer, I have a factor that I calculate when I predict water where sanitary sewer will be. They're all dependent upon the weather, especially the water. So to get as close as we are at 96%, I think we're going to come pretty close to where we expect budget to be at year end. Disbursements are only at 67% right now. 70% of our sanitary sewer utility costs are paid to Montgomery County. They treat our Montgomery County and the city of Dayton, they treat our sanitary wastewater. They bill quarterly, and so we won't bill for the fourth quarter until after the first of the year. So if I add in encumbrances, which is something we expect to receive right after the first of the year, we will be closer to 87%. So we'll be closer to where we expect budget to be. So that being said, I think with all our funds across the board, we're going to end the year in a very good position with our budget. Any questions on where we are through November?
Any questions for Cindy? Okay.
Our department, we in September 30th, Alice Young retired from our department. She was our assistant finance director. Tracy Martin, who had been our payroll clerk for the last 14 years, she's actually been with the city for 32 years. Prior to that, she was in dispatch. She moved up to the assistant finance director position, and I am very grateful to have her at my working with me and helping me in the finance department. We hired Gloria Corona Luna, and she is a recent graduate of Morehead State. She has a BS in mathematics, and she was actually ran track at Morehead State. She is our accounts payable clerk. She's been there just about 2 months, and I think she's pretty happy with what she's doing. I think she's, as someone right out of college, I don't think she ever realized that could receive so many different invoices, and there's so many different ways to pay and so many different ways that we send out money out through the finance department and all the checks and balances. So she's definitely learning a little bit about finances. our goal in 2020 is to really work and cross-train. I really want Gloria to understand the water utility and everything that goes into that. I'd hope that she'll be able to take a look at some of the tax collections and how those come in. So I really want to work on cross-training, not only her, but on the whole department. And the last piece I have tonight is, and I apologize, this is an old picture of our website. I didn't realize it until Lori pointed out that it was an old picture. But you will find everywhere on our new site links to our online bill pay. And when you click on that, it'll take you to this screen. And the only reason I go through this again is because I understand there's a few misunderstandings out there, and we really want to encourage folks to electronically receive their utility invoice statement. We want them to go green. There is no fee to get an electronic statement. Just because you get an electronic statement doesn't mean you have to pay through the portal. You can still send your check to us. You can drop it off. You can drop it in the mail slot. You could have us take the funds for you, and there's no fee for that. Our web portal is a fee-based. We, the city, do not receive that. The company that handles and sets up our web portal and collects the funds and remits those to us, that's their convenience fee, and that's what them in business. You can pay utilities, income tax, other payments. You will need your account number in order to sign up and create an account. You don't have to have an account to get an e-statement. We encourage you can get bill reminders with utility bills if you do sign up and create an account. Those are our fees. Again, no fee for the e-statements. Those are what you see when you click on. You can choose credit card, electronic funds. You can see the service fee. It's very clearly displayed, so everyone knows exactly how much is being charged. And you get a receipt when you're all done, which you can save as a PDF. You don't have to print it. There's the income tax screen. We want to remind everybody the little red asterisks mean those are required fields. And our other payments, and just about anything that you can want to pay to the City of Oakwood can be done through our web portal. That's where you can reach us if you have questions. You can also email us. We're always happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
And does
that was
anyone
as
have
quick
questions?
as I could be.
That was very concise, and we
I
appreciate
have one,
that.
Cindy.
Go ahead.
The service fee for the portal, I didn't catch is it a percentage or is it
It depends
$2.95
on,
or, okay.
It depends on what you're paying.
Okay.
So it's 2.9, it's a flat fee for utilities, $2.95 on $300.
Okay.
And then it's 2.95% if it's income tax or any other. There is a minimum of $1.95.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Other questions for Cindy? Again, thank you for your report, and is my correction or recollection that when Gloria was hired, we picked her from like 200 applications?
We had 200, I believe, Jennifer, 200? And 100 that actually correctly completed the application process.
But it was
But there were,
a lot of it shows we got the best of the best.
we did.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Staff report's over. That means it's time for our city manager's report.
I have nothing this evening.
Nothing. Okay, then we will go to council comments. Councilmember Epley.
Your Honor, in light of the late hour, I have no.
That's the only reason?
One of them.
One of them. Okay, then the Councilmember Hilton.
No comments this evening, Your Honor.
Councilmember Stevens. None this evening, Your Honor. Vice Mayor Byington.
Ditto.
Ditto. Okay. I have no comments as well, except for our next meeting, which will be our organization meeting, which will be on Monday, January 6th, 2020. You believe it's going to be 2020? Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's to everyone, and thank you all for staying. We appreciate all your efforts on behalf of our great city. Good night.